Welcome everyone to STEAM for Tweens at the Fauquier Library. I'm Miss Peeling, and after all, why not be here? And that's what we're going to talk about today is knots. If you got a bag from the library with your supplies, you'll have everything you need. If you did not get a bag, what you'll need is shoelaces, a couple of pieces of string, rope, whatever you might have around, and might have a key ring or a pencil will do, and that's it. All right. Well, here is a quote worth remembering. When you reach the end of your rope, tie a knot and hang on. And whenever you say you're quoting somebody, you're supposed to tell who said it. Well, you have your pick of a number of people who have supposedly said that very same thing. You could choose Thomas Jefferson or Theodore Roosevelt or Franklin Delano Roosevelt or Benjamin Franklin. Supposedly, they all said the same thing. And what that means is you've reached the limit of your patience and you're so frustrated and so annoyed that you just can't take it anymore. So you tie a rope and hang on because things will get better. Well, have you ever thought about how many things knots are used for? Think for a minute. You go rock climbing, or make a rope bridge, or a ladder, or you get stitches and the doctor ties the string in a knot, or fishing, shoelaces. I hope you tie your shoelaces. Sewing on buttons, or bows on a birthday present. And we're going to talk about some of those knots that we might use. There are a few general types of knots. Let's see. We've got bends and bindings, hitches, loops, and stoppers. Those are just a very few of the different kind of knots, and then you could combine those knots and make all sorts of things with them. This macrame plant holder, pot holder was made with knots, and this is one of my favorites. This is called the monkey's fist, and I'm determined to learn how to make this. I got close the other day, but not quite. This one happens to be a dog toy, but you could use it if you made it with smaller cord. It could be a button or on a keychain, lots of things. And I don't know if any of you have known anybody that does paracord. My grandson made this keychain holder with paracord, which is what we'll be using if you picked up a kit here at the library. So we're going to get started practicing some of those knots, just a few. And I'm going to turn down my camera so that you can see what we're doing and you can follow along with me. Now, first kind of knot is a bend. And here's my broken shoelace. Oops, too bad. So we're going to tie another piece of cord onto this broken shoelace to make it longer. A bend joins two ropes together to make a longer one. So this is a bite. It's B-I-G-H-T, not B-I-T-E. A bite is just when you fold your rope like that in a U shape. So we're going to go, you see this? Let me see. There we go. I have taped the end of this piece of cord, just one end, and we call this the working end because this is going to do the weaving in and out to make the knot. The rest of the rope, the cord, it's going to hang out here. This is the standing end. Okay, so it's just going to lay there like that. So you'll take one of your cords that you got in your kit and make a bite. Then another of your cords, you're going to pass under the bite. And then we're going to go under the two strands of cord there. Then, whoops, we're going to go over top of the bottom part of that loop and underneath the other part of the working cord. And then we're just going to pull hard. And that makes your rope, your shoelace, way longer. Or whatever you're tying together, two ropes joined together. That is called a sheet bend because sailors used to tie their sails, their sheets, up using that sort of a knot. Okay, our next one is called a binding. Well, if you've ever tied your shoes, and I hope you've tied your shoes, this is the kind of knot you've used. It's tied a little differently, so you might like this way better, or you might not. So I have I use two colors here to make it easier for you to see. Here's the working end of the gray, and then this we're going to pretend is the standing end. So take the gray in your left hand, or whatever color you've got. Take one in your left hand and the other end in your right, and you're going to go over the standing end, under, and up. Now you've got your working end is now in your other hand, in your right hand. You're going to make a bite here. And you're going to make another bite here. Now, your working end is still going to be doing the work. And it, just like it went over and under down here, it's going to go over and under, goes through that hole there, and then pull your two loops nice and tight. And there, the paracord is not the easiest thing to tie a bow in. Most often you would be using something else, maybe like a ribbon or like those shoelaces. Okay, so there is your binding knot. It's called a square bow. All right. Our next knot is a hitch. This is so easy. Got your ring, or if you have a kit, you got a carabiner too. So what you're going to do is make a bite. There you go. You're going to put it through your ring. And then you're going to reach through and pull those two ends. Just like that. That's a pretty easy one. Then, if you wanted to, you could make one of those square bows without, I would do it without the bites, but just like that, makes a square knot. And you could hang that around your neck and carry whatever you wanted to on that ring. Okay, so that was a hitch. This one is called a cow hitch. Our next one is a loop knot. And this particular one is called a bowline. It's spelled B-O-W-L-I-N-E, but it's pronounced bowline. And some people will argue with that, but that's okay. Some people call it a bowline. So here's my working end. Here's my standing end. Okay. So right here, I'm going to make it a little overhand loop. I'm taking the cord and I'm passing it over, going up and over the standing end. Then we don't want that loop to be very big because it'll get confusing if you do. And I know because I did that a lot of times. We're going to go take the working end and go under that loop and around underneath the excuse me, standing end. Working end is going to come back down here and go through that loop back down, and then you pull nice and tight. And you've got a loop that you can loop around things. You could make this loop bigger or smaller depending on where you start it, but it makes a nice tight loop there. And this is something you could, if you're going to do a ridge line for a tent, you could tie this loop around a tree and tie the other end to another tree and hang your tent over top of it. A ridge line for a tent. All righty. And our last one is called, this is a stopper knot, and it's called a figure 8. And you'll see why in just a minute. Okay, so for the figure 8, you're going to take your working end and make an overhand loop, just like that. And then we're going to go up. Put this down here. Up and under the standing end. You know what that is? And can you see how we're making a figure 8? That's what this one's called. Then you take your working end and pull it over top of the loop, down underneath, and pull. You see the figure 8 there at the end of your rope? And there is a knot that you can tie at the end of your rope. So we have tied one of each of our different kinds of knots. We did the bend to make our broken shoelace longer. And we did the binding to tie our shoe, or if you have to wrap newspapers and put them out for recycling, that's the kind of knot you would use. Tied the loop, the cow hitch, and the hitch, and the loop, the bowline, and then the stopper, the figure 8 knot. Now, that's a lot to try and figure out all of a sudden without, I've had to practice lots and lots. And we have library books, all kinds of knots. I mean, this is full of knots and different things you can make with them. And this one, this is the book I used to make what they call a Tarzan rope. You see all these knots that go all the way around? They had, it's almost like magic. It was magic by the time I got done with it. I'm not sure I could do it again. And that's called the Tarzan rope. And that came out of this book called Knots to Know. All right. And there are also lots of YouTube sites that can show you people tying knots, also different kinds of knots that you might like. And you can always come back right where you are now and take a look and follow the steps again to make your knots. So I hope you enjoy your knots. And remember, when you get to the end of your rope, tie another knot and hang on. Thanks for coming. Bye.